Hello, welcome to Mixed Asian Media Festival, and thank you so much for being us with here today. My name is Michaela Ternasky-Holland. I am the Mixed Asian Media Festival's creative producer. My pronouns are she, her. I'm currently on the unceded lands of the Lenape-Carnarse territories, otherwise known as New York City. I'm a mixed race woman, so I have almond brown eyes, medium dark skin, black hair that's currently down, and behind me is a bluish curtain with brownish yellowish walls. Austria, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Austria Holland. I'm Michaela's little sister. I am a state qualified high school wrestler. I'm currently on or in Napomo, California, and I am a mixed half white, half Filipino woman with short brown hair, almond eyes, and medium skin. I have a bookshelf in my background, and thank you.
Caprice, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thanks. My name is Caprice Dydasco. I'm a professional soccer player in the NWSL. I play for Gotham FC. I'm currently in New Jersey right now, and I'm a mixed race woman as well with dark skin. I have almond eye shaped eyes. I have brown hair and brown eyes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for being here with me today. As someone who absolutely loves athleticism, as someone who absolutely loves using my body and, having a great sweat, whether that's through running or swimming or dance, I'm really excited to be able to sit and talk to you both and have you both kind of help me out as we unpack a little bit about what it means to be an athlete, what it means to kind of have our own place in the world as athletes. So I want to first start with Caprice and ask, if someone were to create like the Marvel movie, your Marvel origin story, like about who you are and what made you the superhero you are today, what would be like the main scenes? What would be the main moments in that Marvel origin story that you would like to share with us?
Oh, good question. I think growing up on a small island, I think it was very like you grew up in a very small group with a small population, and playing soccer, I always only knew that small population until I would traveled and played in the States. And I think that Marvel story, just coming from like a small town to making it to a big city, a big college like UCLA, and then making it pro was would be something like a cool like story. And then within the story, I think it'd be cool just adversity with injury, and then also with just challenges with being a smaller athlete because of my size, and challenges against bigger athletes as well. So that would be kind of like a cool story, just coming from a small town to making it to a big stage and one of the top leagues in the world. So that would be kind of my story.
Which is amazing and totally awesome. Austria, I know that you yourself also have had your own story. How does one become a high school state qualified wrestler? Go ahead and share with us.
Well, I started out at the age of 5 and I did judo. And I would always, at first, I would watch all my brothers and they did it. But then I decided I wanted to do it as well. And I continued along that path for around 5 years and finally became a wrestler, which I practiced with boys all the time. And then eventually, when I started wrestling with girls, it just kind of came easy and naturally.
Nice. I'd like to ask you both, what is your relationship with athletics?
Would you like to go?
You can start. Yeah.
Okay. I think I would say a very healthy one. Obviously, it's my job. I always grew up playing different sports growing up. My parents both met through soccer, so it was a joke that our family that all the Dydasco kids were born on the soccer field. But I did from swimming to dance to horseback riding to soccer. So I did like like a crazy amount of different sports growing up. But I always just felt like sports was kind of my like oasis where I could just be free and not think about anything in the outside world. And I just felt like mostly myself playing sports. So me and sports, we get along very well. And sometimes now that it's my job, it's definitely not always rainbows and butterflies. It's definitely stressful, but I'm so grateful to be able to play a sport for my job right now. And I'm just grateful every day, and I just love my job, so it's great.
Thank you. Yeah, I grew up doing high school track, high school cross country. I was a dancer. Now I'm a professional dancer, you could say. I'm a part of a dance company, but I still like coach running and I still love to swim. And so I think for me, like athletics is a place I go to reset. It's a place I go to like make sure that I'm in tune with my body. And it's such an important part of my life. Like I don't think I would be the person I am today without athletics. Austria, what about you? Oh, you might be a little bit frozen. Oh, Austria, can you hear us? Austria, what's your relationship with athletics? Uh-oh, can't hear us. No worries. We'll give you a second to figure out what's going on. Caprice, so you mentioned a little bit about the other sports that you played, and you also mentioned that you have siblings. Tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up with. It sounds like all your siblings were athletic, and sounds like maybe you had more than one. So tell us a little bit about that and like your exploration with playing sports, multiple sports, playing sports with your siblings, if you had competitive siblings, etc.
Yeah, definitely. My parents both played soccer, so they always like brought us around the soccer field, but they thought it was very important to have us try different sports. They never once forced us to be only doing soccer one sport at a time. They kind of just wanted us to experience a bunch of different sports. And then if we decided to only play one, like they supported us through everything, which is great. So my brother, I have an older brother. He is 4 years older, and then a younger sister that's 5 years younger. And we all ended up loving soccer, playing soccer. So we would always play soccer in our backyard. Our parents would always just like facilitate it, make sure we don't get into big fights. But I think I am the player I am today because of my siblings. We always played, no matter if it was basketball, soccer, whatever, we always got super competitive. And I think that helped a lot because my brother made me super competitive and he kind of roughened me up a little bit and prepared me for like just like real world, I guess. But yeah, I think I grew up playing different sports, and I think that kind of made me fall in love with soccer because I was able to choose it myself, and I tried different sports, and I knew that soccer was my thing. So I think it's really great that my parents supported me and just made me try different sports, and they never once forced me to play soccer, which I love. So it was all like up to us, and whatever it was with their support. So I think that really helped a lot.
I love that story. Austria, do you want to share a little bit about what athletics mean to you and other sports you play and growing up with siblings?
Yeah, so I actually play volleyball currently, and I'm going to wrestle next season and then run track. Um, Wrestling really was just, I fell in love with it because like you, I have brothers, and they they roughed me up too a little bit. But wrestling kind of just was an outlet for me. And then it started to like not become as enjoyable. So I started playing volleyball too, which was just what I did for fun. And it was just like kind of taking all the pressure off, which was really nice. And then track is just, I love bonding with the team. And at the end of the day, I just do the sports that I love, and switching in and out between each of them is just works for me the best.
Yeah, speaking of being with a team, Caprice, can you share a little bit with us what it is like to transition from a more smaller environment? I believe you grew up in Hawaii, correct?
Yes.
And transitioning from there to UCLA, and then transitioning from playing at UCLA to now playing for Gotham FC in Jersey and New York. Like, what was sort of the difference, the similarities that you saw and you felt as you made those transitions?
Yeah, I definitely think that team cohesion and camaraderie is really important. I think that's like one of the best things I love about being a team is like having just your best friends always around and getting to play soccer as my job with my best friends is amazing. my team from club soccer growing up, I was with the same team since I was 8 years old. So it was kind of fun just to go through and grow and go through different phases of our lives through soccer. And then we got to travel a bunch with my friends, and it was just an amazing experience just to play with club soccer and then eventually play against them in college, some of them in college. So I think the biggest like aspect across like all of it is like I really love having being a part of a team that really cares about each other and have like a really good camaraderie within each other. I think that's why like our teams are so successful is like when a team really bonds. Um, but I think the biggest difference between college soccer and professional soccer is just the speed of play. Um, at this point, like everyone's really good at soccer within college or pro, but just the speed of play, like everyone's just super like so tuned in with the details that the ball's moving so much faster, the players a little bit faster, and it's just like everyone's so good, but it's just the details that really matter, and they're just like a really student of the game. So yeah, I think the pro level is great, and I'm still learning, even though this is my seventh season pro. I'm still learning every day, and that's like so great because no matter if you're at the highest level, there's still room to grow and there's still work to be done. So I think that's just the biggest difference from college to pro, but I still think the friendships and the camaraderie is still there within the pro team.
Awesome. Austria, I know you've been back and forth whether or not you potentially want to go and do wrestling in college, and I know it's something you're wrestling with, quote unquote. Do you want to talk a little bit about like what you see as like the pros and cons of you continuing to pursue wrestling after high school?
Yeah, so I have really been just, it's been a big debate in my mind whether or not I want to keep going. And it's just because I know that with college and all the work that is given, I know that that's a big responsibility and task. And I want to be able to give my 100% in any sport I play. But I don't know if that'd be possible with all of the work that I'd be doing in college as well. I've talked to a couple of college athletes and they said it was really tough. So if I decide to pursue that, then I would just have to kind of give up other things that I may think are important to me. And that's just kind of where I'm at the current moment. I don't know if it's worth it or not at the end of the day.
I'm wondering, Caprice, did you have some similar thoughts when you were thinking about college, or were you like, I want to play no matter what, or where were you in this like kind of conjuncture in your life?
Yeah, I definitely knew I wanted to go to college and play soccer no matter where I went. But I think growing up on an island, my parents really encouraged me to get off the island, try something new, live somewhere in the mainland and experience college. And if I never liked it, like they were like, you can always come back home. So they really encouraged me to go away and experience college. So they always said, don't choose a college because of the sport, choose it for academics. And just if you saw your life like outside of soccer where it's like you didn't like the sport or you got injured or something happened, like at least you would still like the school. So they said choose a school because without soccer and with just like pure academics and the surroundings um and then you'll like enjoy it. So I fell in love with UCLA as soon as I stepped on campus, and I was like, this felt like home. So without soccer, I knew that it would be great academically, and then I could see myself living like without soccer. So that was really important to me.
Nice. And did you walk on to the soccer team at UCLA, or were you invited into the soccer team? Were you recruited?
Yeah, so I was very fortunate. I was recruited by the coach, so I had a scholarship to UCLA. I was very fortunate. I had different offers, but at the end of the day, I felt like UCLA fit me best. So I know it's so competitive right now getting scholarships to colleges, but um, it's only getting harder now. So I'm like, I'm so glad I graduated a long time ago. So when it wasn't as big. So
Well, we celebrate it, whether it's now or a few years ago, it's still an incredible feat. So congrats to you and being able to have that opportunity.
thank
Um,
you.
you're welcome. Would love to kind of start to transition over to Austria asking you a few questions. But before we do that, I do want to ask you both your journeys with injuries, your journeys with sort of even body image. If there's, I know with Austria, obviously, you have to cut weight as a wrestler. So, wherever you feel most comfortable sharing on this panel, I think it'd be a really great insight to some of the struggles that people know athletes go through, but hearing it from a more personal lens for either of you. Austria, would you like to start?
Yes, so this is kind of a big one with female wrestlers, or I guess any wrestler. I've noticed that with wrestlers, a lot of them have body image issues because of cutting weight. You'll lose like 20 pounds in a week, and then you get so used to your body looking like that that you always want it to look like that. And then most of the time, they'll come out with like an eating disorder, which is really unfortunate. And I've actually like seen it happen, and it's really sad. But I personally I don't have any body image like issues that I know of. But it does happen. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Austria. Caprice.
Yeah, I definitely had my fair share of injuries. I'm 28 now, so within my whole soccer career, I tore my ACL 3 times and I broke my jaw once. So it was the first time was in high school right before the U17 World Cup when I was playing with the U17 national team. And the first one was really hard because I just committed to UCLA the week before and I just thought my whole world was flipped. I didn't think I was going to make it back and play soccer. And um, that was my first one. My second time was my second year pro. I tore it in the NWSL final. And the third one was the last year right during preseason, right after the pandemic, and we returned to season. So it was all not ideal at the moment. But at the end of the day, I look back and I'm so grateful in a way that it sounds weird, but I'm grateful that my body was able to recover and from these ACL injuries and surgeries, and now I think it made me better and stronger mentally and physically. And I sound crazy that I'm back playing soccer again after 3 ACLs, but I feel my body feels the best it's ever felt, and I think now that I'm older and experienced, I went through all of that. I'm more in tune with my body and my mind, and I know what my body needs to play at my best. So, um, yeah, I think injuries has definitely made me stronger in where I am today and helped me get there. But body image, I personally haven't gone through that, but I know being on this platform and being on a stage like a professional soccer player and athlete, I know a lot of players get categorized into you're a professional, you should look this way in order to play at your highest level or compete because you look unfit. And I know a lot of players went through a hard time because of coaches saying that. And it's really hard because you're constantly being judged. And at the end of the day, like our job is being judged on our performance and how we look. And it's really hard for players to go through that. So um, I'm glad that we're able to talk about this and share and talk about people going through hard times like that because it is a thing now.
Yeah. Last few questions from me. I'd love to talk a little bit about how involved parents have been in the process of you being an athlete. I know, Caprice, you sort of touched on it with your family, and Austria, you touched on it as well. But, how impactful or important is it for parents to be involved in their child's sports careers or be supportive, or maybe parents who haven't been as supportive? Like, how has that informed you on what you do and how you do it, what you do? Caprice, would you like to start?
Yeah. Um, I think parents like supporting their child is so important. I definitely wouldn't be here without them. Just even starting from like when I was growing up, just knowing their support that they were at my soccer game, so they supported me following my dreams and playing soccer, especially with women's soccer and sports in general. We don't get paid a lot, and we're still fighting for equal pay. And I think a lot of players have retired at 22 or 23 because their parents are like, we're not going to support you. You need to get a real job. And it's just really sad because these players that have such a bright future and potential, they're ending up giving up their career because we're not getting what we deserve and their parents don't support them. So I'm so grateful that my parents have always supported me, no matter if I was going to be playing soccer or something else. They always had my back. And I think that makes me feel like so much better on the soccer field so I can do my best on the field. So not always having regret saying, oh, I don't think my parents support me, and I can leave that behind and I can do my best and enjoy my job because I know they support me. So I think family and parent support is everything.
Thank you for sharing. Austria, would you like to answer the question as well?
Yeah, so I personally know that if I didn't have people supporting me like my family, I would not have been able to get through most of my seasons in athletics, especially because you go through the highs and the lows. It's like an emotional roller coaster when it comes to like competing in the games, in the tournaments. It's like, oh, you're going to do really good. But then if you do bad, at least you know that there's someone there for you that's going to be there for you, that's going to say that you did good, even if you didn't do your best that day. I do think that family is very essential in that way, that they just are there for you emotionally when it comes to sports.
Awesome. Last question for me, and then I'll hand it over to Austria to take the wheel. Um, let's talk a little bit about race. So for me, when I was dancing, I hardly saw fellow mixed Asian people. I was very much surrounded by a different type of crowd. And even running cross country in Napomo, California, where Austria is, I hardly saw people who looked like me. And then it was even more interesting because when I was hanging out with my team, whether it was cross country or track, there was always this sense of like, shouldn't you be doing shouldn't you be doing like martial arts, or like shouldn't you be doing like a more Asian sport, and I've always thought that was so interesting that people would ask me that, or I would feel that sort of essence from people. Like I was always called like the ninja on my team. And not that any of these are terrible, and not that any of these like made a lasting impression on me to the point where I felt like I couldn't still be athletic. But I do know for certain, like I'm one of the only Asian American women at Equinox that like coaches running, right? So like it's so interesting because like members will be like, that was an amazing class. I didn't think you were a running coach, right? Like when you first walked in the door. So like little things like that. So I'm wondering, have either of you experienced something like that in any world, whether from high school, elementary school, college, professional athletes, where you felt like because you looked a certain way that people didn't consider you a true athlete or a real competitor in any certain sense of that word? Caprice, would you like to take the question first?
Yeah. Growing up in Hawaii was so unique because we had such a big population of the Asian community. So a lot of my teammates looked like me. So I didn't think anything of it until I went to college and I was the only Asian player on the team. And I never experienced any like bad experience of being called or categorized to a certain like ethnicity, but I know like Japanese players for soccer, they're very technical and they're very good in like small spaces and possession. And I think now that I look back at it, like coaches would always be like, "Oh wow, you're very technical, like you're technical like the Japanese players." And I guess like now looking back, I'm like, oh, just because I looked Asian, they assumed that I would be good with my technical skills because like Asian like countries are usually good with their technical skills and possession oriented. So yeah, I didn't really like think about it until it's been brought up like more about um, Asian community, and like I never really saw myself as like Asian because I never saw a lot of Asians that played soccer. So I'd just be like, oh yeah, I'm Pacific Islander, and I would associate myself with other people, other groups that kind of look like me but wasn't really Asian. I'm like, oh, I'm only a little Asian, but like I'm a lot of Asian in my so yeah, I think like now looking back, I've always like tried to like make myself like into another group, like because I didn't see a lot of players like me.
Thank you. Yeah, Austria.
Well, being on a wrestling team with boys, one, it's there have never been any people that were Asian on my team. So I was like Asian and I was also a girl. So I had two things going against me at the time. And teenage boys aren't exactly the most mature, so they will always make jokes about like being Asian, about like even little things like, oh, your driving must not be good because you're Asian. And it's like, I know they mean no harm by it, but it is just a way that they did single me out. And it was like, oh, you're like a small Asian girl. How are you gonna wrestle? And so they did um like associate me with like, I don't know, they'd be like, oh, you're small, you should be like a cheerleader or you should be a gymnast. And they never looked at me and just thought, oh, she could be a wrestler. You know, they just kind of um, categorized me in their mind. And then like I couldn't convince them otherwise until I would wrestle them and beat them.
Yeah, and that was one way to kind of establish your place on the mat, right? I mean, I'm even thinking about with dance, most people see Asian dancers as being petite and being very fragile and being very dainty. And I am not. I'm a very athletic, powerful dancer. And so it would be even surprising for people like I'm 4'11" and I could like travel all the way across the dance floor in like 7 steps. And people would be like, I didn't think you'd be so powerful. And it's like, not only because of my size, but I also think, they'd be like, oh, we thought you were like a ballerina. And I'd be like, this is crazy.
Yeah, like going up, I guess Asians are typically like smaller and shorter, and I think I was kind of like held against that for a while for my size because they're like, oh wow, you're shorter, but like wow, when I saw you play, you're pretty strong, you're physical, like you're good. And I'm like, yeah, like short people can actually be strong and we can actually be good at our sport. So don't categorize and write us off. So I think it's kind of fun to um, like make people be like, oh wow, like you are good, but at the same time, don't write me off because I'm shorter than other like athletes myself. So I think that was great that you pointed on that.
Yeah. I love good, like powerful. I also like the kind of subversion of it, but also in the sad way, it's like we shouldn't have to be the subversion. We shouldn't have to be the secret weapon. We shouldn't have to be seen as like, I was surprised by you versus just being like, you're an amazing soccer player and I was watching you play soccer, right?
Exactly.
Or you're an amazing wrestler and I just know you were a really great wrestler versus being like, oh wow, you're a small, powerful wrestler. So
Agreed.
Yeah.
I know we have a few minutes, so I want to hand the mic over to Austria because I know, Austria, you wanted to ask Caprice a few questions. So I will go ahead and step back and let Austria take the wheel.
Cool. Thanks, Nick. Okay, so one of my questions is, what's the best advice that you've received from like a mentor or a coach through all like the years that you've been playing soccer? It can be from like when you were younger or I guess currently, whichever.
Yeah, I think the best advice I've ever gotten from a coach, it's very cliche, but I still think about it to this day. It's just remember who you are. There's no other player or person like you, so stick to what you're good at and make that thrive and always work on your weaknesses. So don't try to be anyone you aren't because you're on this team. You're on your wrestling team. You're at a place for a reason, and you need to like contribute to that to your team, and because your team needs that, and that you're there for a reason and believe it, and just stick to who you are and be good at it, and then also work on your weaknesses as well. So I think that was like always my like best advice. So whenever I question myself, being like, oh my gosh, am I good enough to be on this team? Like I'm like, yes, I am. Like just like do what you're good at, and then you'll be fine.
Sounds good. That's some good advice. But do you have any like that you personally have thought of yourself that you would want to share with any athletes that are upcoming? Or do you think that's just like the best advice you've heard and you just lived by that?
Yeah, I definitely live by that. Like I always think about it because I heard it when I was really young. But I think also just find something you're really passionate about, whether it's being a sport, like an athlete, being a want to be a doctor, be a painter, a dancer, like whatever it is. I think I always tell kids or whoever, just find something you're passionate about and go for it because that will take you to the next level. And there's no dream that's unreachable. So if you really want it, go after it. And um, I think if you have the support from your family and your friends, that's amazing. And there's no one that wants it more than you, so you just have to go for it. So
That's good advice. As long as you like the thing that you're doing, there's never like, there's never a downside to doing it. Um, so besides, I know you've mentioned that you love soccer, but maybe in addition to that or besides that, do you have any other dreams of like things you want to do in athletics or outside of athletics?
yes, I've always wanted the idea to go back to Hawaii and give back to the soccer community, whether it was something that I would start my own like club or training facility to give players the opportunity to learn. And I've always wanted like an indoor facility where kids could come and we could do technical sessions as well as just give back to the soccer community in Hawaii to show that Hawaii players have great and talented players. So and make that well known around the world and in our country as well. But I always loved working with kids, so I've always wanted to start a nonprofit as well somehow. Because I did a lot of nonprofit work growing up. So I have dreams, and I don't know what direction that's going to look like, but I know that I'm like passionate about those things.
Wow. Well, good luck with that.
Thanks.
Do you have anything that you share on social media? Like, do you have anything that's important for you to share, like using the social media platform? Like, I know you mentioned that earlier that like women's soccer doesn't really get paid that much. Is that something maybe that you promote, or is there anything else that you, I don't know, promote on your social medias?
Yeah, I definitely didn't use like my social media at all for a platform. I just used it just to share pictures of like hanging out with friends and family. But I think now, now that I'm more established in my career, I want to use my platform to be a voice. Not that I'm like the most like well-known player, but I think it's important if there's something I'm passionate about, I share with. So like lately, I love supporting other professional athletes or not even only athletes, but in any career. So I'm really passionate about just raising awareness that there is women that are successful in their careers. And a lot of people are like, I didn't know there was a professional soccer team for like a league for women. And it's like, yes. And I love just sharing about like different like women's like wrestlers, soccer players, basketball players, like singers, like whatever it is, dancers. Like I just want to raise like awareness about women's successful careers as well. So yeah, I think that's one of the things I'm really passionate about to use my platform for.
Nice. Well, that's all the questions I have for you. I'll hand the mic over back to Michaela.
Thanks, Austria. And that's all the time we have today for our amazing panel. This has been such a blast. I am totally 100% going to try and come see you play Caprice. I live in New
Oh
York
my
City,
gosh,
so
amazing. Let me know and
yeah.
I can get you guys tickets. We love our fans.
Yes, we'd love to come and hang out with you all and see you all play. And Austria, I know you're in California, but maybe one day when you come visit New York, we'll go see Caprice play. But other than that, I just want to say thank you again for your time and your energy with us today. And thank you for being a part of Mixed Asian Media Fest. Austria, thank you also for your time and energy. I know you're about to head over to a volleyball game. And last but not least, I just want to thank our audience for watching. Stay tuned. There's some more amazing, exciting stuff happening later today, as well as the rest of the days of the festival. So feel free to check those out. And we will see you all a little bit later.
Thank you for
Thank
joining us.
you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Mick.